Hey, how you doing, everybody? Today we're going to take a look at the law of supply, which in sort of sophisticated economic language, it says that the law of supply says that as the price of a product rises, the quantity supplied of the product will usually increase, ceteris paribus, and vice versa is also true. So as the price of a product falls, the quantity supplied of the product will usually decrease, ceteris paribus. And ceteris paribus, you should know from earlier videos, means all things equal. And this makes sense. If you're going to provide something to the marketplace, and all of a sudden you think you're going to get $10 for that product, and all of a sudden the price goes up to 20, whoa, you're going to look around and try to say, hey, I need to produce more of this because I can be more profitable. Whereas if you, or increase your revenue at the very least, and if all of a sudden the price goes from $10 to $5, you're like, oh, well, I don't know, so sure I really want to make that product because all of a sudden the price dropped. And that's the basic logic behind the law of supply. Now let's take a look at supply in a more general sense. Supply is the willingness and ability of producers to produce a quantity of a good or service at a given price in a given time period. That's a lot of words and they're all important. Supply is the willingness and ability of producers to produce a quantity of a good or service at a given price in a given period of time. And that can be represented by a supply curve, just like demand can be represented by a demand curve. Supply is represented by the supply curve. So this entire red line down here represents supply. It is producers' willingness and ability to produce a good, in this case we're talking about gasoline, at a given price point over a particular period of time, in this case a month. Here's something that I think is really, really important, and you can get really tripped up on the supply. And the reason you get tripped up on supply is we don't spend our lives supplying things usually to a marketplace, right? No, especially when you're in school, you're not working. You're consuming things. You're consuming in education right now as you listen to this video. You consume things at lunch. You consume things when you go out to the movies with your friends. You are a consumer, and so demand makes sense. You see something and it's on sale, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy it. But if it's not on sale, you might not be willing to buy it. So you understand demand. Now supply, however, you got to flip your brain around and you got to think about, okay, what if I were going to sell something? What would motivate me? Well, I tell you what would motivate you: a higher price. A higher price. If the price were up here, you would be more willing and able, probably, to supply it to the marketplace because you have a higher price. And that's why I think it's so helpful when you think about this supply curve to think about it as a collection of data points, a collection of people. These are real people down here, let's say, and their willingness and ability to provide a good based on what? Based on the price. The higher the price, right, the more people are willing and able, because you read this from down below. This is the minimum that anybody would provide it in the marketplace for, and as the price goes up, more and more people are willing and able to do it. And then more willing, and at this price point, way at the top of the curve, every single one would be willing to do it, and there'd be a lot quantity supplied. Down here, what? There's only like 4 data points down there, whatever. All these people, only the bottom portion here would be willing and able to supply at a lower price. Okay, so at P1Q1, right, which is what this graph shows, all of these people below are willing and able, but these people up here are not. They cannot produce this gasoline for the P1. If you raise the price up here, now they can produce. All these people are in the marketplace. And so really think about the curve as a representative of different little data points and the price quantity combinations that they're willing and able to do, considering that they're different suppliers of gasoline. It really helps you understand, even if economically that's not perfectly correct, understand the nature of supply. So the law of supply simply states that as the price of a product rises, the quantity supplied of the product will usually increase, ceteris paribus, and vice versa, right? So you can see if you start here at this price point, there are very few suppliers interested in supplying, right? Only that many. But as the price goes up, now all of a sudden all of these people are willing and able to supply it. Okay, so it's helpful, as I've said to you about demand, but you think about this supply curve as a collection of data points, of price quantity combinations. It really helps you understand that as price goes up, all of these suppliers underneath here will be willing and able to produce the good. Okay, and this occurs because at higher prices, there'll be more potential profits to be made, so the producer will increase output. Okay, so there's logic behind it, and I hope that you see that logic. Okay, so here's a blown up version of the supply curve, and if we were to add some price quantities here, right? If the price is higher, look at how many more people are willing and able to produce the good, right? So if we are up here at this price point, look at how many producers. Remember, this is a collection of little data points. These are producers' willingness and ability, and as the price goes down, there are fewer of them because there's a direct relationship between them. And so we can see that at this price point, look at how many producers are interested and willing and able to produce. But as price goes down, all these people can't do it. Price keeps going down, 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 down. Now there's very few, and I put mine off center here, that's kind of ridiculous. But you can see that there are very few people here who are willing and able to produce at that low price point. Okay, so that's the law of supply. It's pretty straightforward. You got to switch your brain over to be a producer and think about what would make you want to sell something, and it makes it a little bit easier. Okay? Thanks a lot. I hope you found that video to be helpful, and we'll talk to you in a bit.